show are those of the show personalities and guest alone, and not those of Vic Canellis Media Group, its parent, affiliates, or stations. VCMG Live is not responsible for any content, information, or opinions expressed. User bears full responsibility for their reliance on such content, information, or opinions.
Welcome to Making Money with Laura Sanders, a name you can trust. With over 20 years of real estate experience and selling over 150 homes a year, Laura Sanders is the #1 RE/MAX agent in the state of Florida for 2021. Join us each week as we discuss how to make money through buying and flipping homes, to renting versus selling, and everything in between. To join the conversation, call in live 888-994-4995, Studio A.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Making Money with Laura Sanders, and I am your host, Laura Sanders. Every week, we talk about something to help you make a little money, save a little money, or maybe just help you navigate this crazy world that we live in. And boy, oh boy, is it crazy. Today, we're here with Nicholas Fiorello from JK Closing Attorneys, and we're going to talk about things that will your deal. So, welcome, Nick.
Thank you for having me.
I guess I can't say that word, so I guess we'll use that mess up your deals rather than your deals.
Definitely, there's a lot of those that can happen and have happened to not only me, but I'm sure most people in the industry this year.
Yes. So tell us about some things that happen in the industry that can really mess up your deal, that could really put you in a real big bind as an agent, and you're going to wish you never became a realtor.
So, I mean, we've talked about a lot of them throughout our meetings this year. As I've been on the show, we've talked about a whole bunch of different things that all have an impact on a transaction and all can really mess it up. One of the big items are condos, like just a general umbrella that has caused a lot of different issues this year. One I've been seeing recently are right of first refusals. I've seen, I think, 5 or 6 in the last month and a half, which I'm not sure what the uptick in those are, but it's something that has really messed with a lot of transactions that we've had where the association or the members of the association have a right of first refusal and can pretty much kick a buyer out of a transaction and replace them with somebody of their choosing. So,
At the same price, of course, though, right?
yeah, everything has to stay the same. The contract pretty much stays the same. I suggest executing a new contract with the same exact terms. And that buyer basically has to step into the shoes of the existing buyer or the original buyer. And usually these associations, I'm not sure what the exact reason is, but they have somebody ready to go, or the association themselves can step in and purchase the unit and then sell it later. But they have to follow the same terms. We had one recently where the buyer was going to sign a FERPTA affidavit for the seller to not have to withhold any FERPTA funds to be remitted to the IRS. And the new buyer couldn't do that because it was an investor. So it wasn't substantially the same terms as the original buyer, and we couldn't move forward with it. So they ended up finding a different buyer to substitute in, which would end up, matching the terms. But, it's something that messed up the original transaction and then led to a delay because they couldn't substitute a correct buyer in.
Can they delay?
And there was a whole big fight. It was.
Can they delay?
They can't delay. No, but it happened to be a delay because of the dilemma that it caused. They didn't understand why that they were causing issues when they substituted the new buyer in. But then my argument back to them was that it wasn't the same.
Well, let's go back so people understand. On the new condo addendum, they specifically ask, does the condo association have first right of refusal, right? Yes or no? And a lot of, even when you call over to the associations, they don't know.
then that's the problem. Sometimes in that case, when you have a management company that, and a lot of them have been changing a lot and changing recently, and new management companies have been brought in, there are issues because there's a lack of communication between either the old management company, the new management company, the board, and their old management company, new management company, or even the attorney. So the attorney usually for the association will know this, but trying to get them involved in a transaction, as you know, is almost impossible. But most of the time, when I do have a question on it, I tell them to go to the association attorney, and especially if you're a listing agent, you want to make sure that you disclose correctly on that condo rider. So it's better to know that before you even list the property. So to get the answer from that attorney if you're getting a lackluster answer from the board or from the management company.
Yeah, that's definitely an issue. So that's one thing that can definitely cause you to mess up your deal. Not knowing the right answer and not knowing, when they do jump in. I find it interesting that anybody would want to jump in, but I would imagine Ramblewood East would jump in all the time if the deal was sweet enough.
I'm sure. And then they can flip it, do whatever they want to do. I'm not sure, a lot of these places have friends that, the board members have friends that they want to have their friends in the community. So this gives them an avenue to have their friend move in instead of Joe Schmo. Random person puts an offer in. So I'm not sure what the motivation is. Sometimes, it's to keep like-minded people in the same place. I'm not sure, but it is something that I've seen an uptick in, and seeing like five or six in the last month or two. That's a little crazy.
That's
That's more
crazy.
than I've.
I can't believe you saw that many in the last month or two, but okay.
Yeah, yeah. It is what it is.
So the next one, I think you might have gotten that from one of my deals.
I know
Condo
where you're
code
going.
violations on associations, uh, and not getting partial release because of permits.
Yeah, so this is a big topic. So I think we're going to be talking about this for a little bit, but and it has to do with milestone inspection, structural integrity reserve studies, has to do with associations, condo associations in particular, not following the protocols and procedures they needed to for the last 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. You have a lot of these old buildings that were falling, out of compliance. A lot of special assessments that have been needed to be made, and this is all correlated together because the board or the management companies or the association in whole were not doing what they needed. So nowadays we have the new laws that we've talked about previously, new stringent standards that need to be met by associations. And in order to meet some of these standards, they I
Had a
don't.
little bit of technical difficulty.
I'm back. I'm back.
Okay,
So I apologize about that.
it's okay.
So some of these issues, you know, have to do mainly, and the crux of the issue is because the association has not done what they're supposed to do. So in the flip side of that, because they haven't done what they're supposed to do, sometimes they are in violation of code enforcement rules, building rules and regulations of the different municipalities, and a code violation can be put on these properties. That has to do, with them not being in compliance, and it has a significant impact on closing a transaction. One, some lenders won't touch those transactions because of the amount of the lien, the violation, whatever it is. Some lenders won't be able to issue a loan on that. Two, if there's a code violation, you might be able to get a partial release and release that particular unit. But in our case, what you were referring to is when we were looking to obtain a partial release, the city said specifically that they are going to do an quote unquote audit of the property. And because during that audit, they found that the owner had done unpermitted work in the property, and they specifically said on their partial release request form that if they find unpermitted work in the property, no partial release would be granted. So therefore, in this case, the owner had done unpermitted work tens of years ago. I don't know how long. I don't know. It was in the early
Long
mid
time ago.
2000s, 15, 20 years ago, I think. And so in this case, he has no records, no information on that transaction, on the work that was done. So then when we're going to sell the property, we think, oh yeah, great, we can get a partial release. So the city issues taken, is resolved, and then the lender was okay moving forward. In that case, because they did unpermitted work and they found in the audit that they did unpermitted work, they wouldn't issue the partial release. So then now we have a title issue where title can't be cleared until the permit issues are resolved, even if the contract didn't provide anything about the seller having to cure any of the permits. Ultimately, they would have had to. And then ultimately, the buyer said they didn't want to move forward with that transaction. So, and we get to a situation where it all stems from the association not doing what they had to do. In that case, it was like some driveway that they didn't have, up to code. And just because of that, something that was so simple with a partial release, they would have partially released that unit, now becomes an issue where that person can't sell their home if they have
Yeah.
a particular buyer buying, with a loan, or, it can cause so many more issues than what a board member at that time being negligent or not knowing what they're doing can lead to an even bigger and larger issue. So it's just something that
Well,
cities are doing now.
even I've seen where somebody closed on a property in Coral Springs, and after they closed, the city saw the pictures and the city went out after them, and they're like, I bought it this way, and they're like, so sorry. So
Yeah,
that's kind of
it's one
scary
thing
too.
now. Yeah, one thing now that realtors have to be really careful with is when they list a property, they need to really speak to the seller and the homeowner as to whether they did work on the property or not. Because what these municipalities are doing now is they're auditing each listing that they see. And I'm not sure if the municipal lien search is what triggers it when they get a request, because obviously when they get a request, that
No, this is
usually
happening
typically means there's a
sometimes
sale.
after. This is happening after
Yeah,
a lot of times.
but they have
So,
somebody dedicated in these municipalities to find these inconsistencies and then to go after them and either violate the property or, for unpermitted work or something, which could really impact a closing as well.
well, let me ask you a question. Let's say if though you get a seller's disclosure and the seller's disclosure does not say that they did any unpermitted work, because that is a question, right? Will that become an issue later on?
Well, it depends, because ultimately the seller might not know it was unpermitted or required permits. They're not the
Right. But
expert
if
at
the
that time.
buyer later on gets nabbed by, will that be an issue?
It could be, but
How, how,
the buyer would
I mean,
ultimately have
realistically,
to
who's in
go ahead.
trouble for this? Who's in trouble for this? Like, who's to blame? You can't put
I
this
think
all
at
on the
that point,
realtor.
no, how are you as a realtor supposed to know something on a house that you don't own? The
And there's
amount of
also
information that
cities
you
where
know,
there's cities we can't search permits.
100%. And so you
And
are relying on what the seller knows, and the seller's relying on what they actually know. So for a buyer to come back after a seller after disclosing that they didn't do permits without, or didn't do work without permits, how are they supposed to know that? A layperson is not supposed to know what requires a permit versus not.
well, if they bought the house, let's say they bought the house in 2018, right? And they sell the house in 2024. And there's pictures from 2018 with an original kitchen. I think that will tell you a little bit of what you need to know. Would you
A
not
hundred
agree?
percent. That's what yeah, 100%. This is what the cities are looking for. Is they look back on prior listings. They look at a prior listing versus a new listing. A realtor listing agent puts on their on their listing, brand new kitchen, brand new bathroom, brand new whatever. It seems like those keywords are triggering the city to go back and look at previous listings or previous work on the house and see if there are permits that match that work. And if not, then they're coming in and assessing a violation, a building violation. They're requiring permits to be pulled. And after the fact, permits can be very difficult depending on when they were. Sometimes it's 20 years ago and that contractor that did the work isn't in existence anymore. And you have to have a new contractor come in and certify the work of somebody else 20 years ago. It's very hard to find somebody to do that and put their name
It
and
is.
license on the line for that. So,
We're
it
going to go
becomes
to
a
commercial
very,
break. Go ahead, say it again.
it just becomes a very large issue at closing. That's
It
all.
is. I know. Trust me, I deal with this every day. So we're going to go to commercial break. And when we come back from commercial break, let's talk about what's going on because 2026 is literally around the corner. And I believe that condos need to be up to date. Am I wrong or am I right?
They extended the deadline again, I believe.
Oh, well, let's talk about that when we come back. But stay tuned to see some of our amazing sponsors. We'll be right back.
At JK Closing Attorneys, we do all of the same things that a title company does, but with the benefits of being a law office. We can help with residential real estate, short sales, commercial real estate, refinances, 1031 exchanges, and FRIPTA withholding.
Contact JK Closing Attorneys today at 954-332-3111. Again, that is 954-332-3111.
Priority One Credit Union of Florida is a welcoming credit union that makes your financial success our #1 priority. We offer lower loan rates, higher deposit rates, and common sense local loan approvals, with nationwide access through shared branching.
Hi, I'm Dina Hennessy, President and CEO at Priority One Credit Union. We are open to the community. Anyone can be a member of our credit union, and we would love to have you.
Contact us today at 954-335-5100. You can also reach us at PriorityOneFL.org. Your financial success is our priority. That's 954-335-5100.
You have been watching Making Money with Laura. For more information, contact Laura Sanders at 954-650-0827 or visit her website at theloracell.com. And now back to the show.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Making Money with Laura Sanders, and I am your host, Laura Sanders. Today, we're here with Nick Fiorello from JK Closing Attorneys, and we're talking about what will mess your deal up. And let me just tell you something. There's a lot of things out there that really can mess your deal up, and we're not even going to touch the surface. But one of the things that I think is also important to touch on today is about condos with their lack of keeping up with the laws, leading to giant special assessments. And where do we stand with associations getting to where they need to be today with their finances? So welcome back, Nick.
Thank you. So, last year was the deadline, initially, the end of last
Right.
year. They extended it to the end of last year. And then I'm pretty sure they just extended it. I don't have the exact date,
Another year?
and the specifics. I'm not sure if it was
Not
another year
another
or not. I
year.
need to go look that up.
Yeah, we
I'm
need
not
to know
sure.
that.
I
So you
hope
don't
it's
have
not
to look
another
it up
year.
now, but I hope that you can get back to us with that so that we know what we need to be doing moving forward.
Definitely. Next time I'm on, I will have a up-to-date assessment of the new laws and the new extensions. But I do
Yeah, because
want to touch
as an
on
agent, no, go ahead.
no, I want to touch on the fact that this is leading to a lot of problems within the condo community and the sales of condos. I saw a special assessment for $123,000 per unit this year. That is a lot of money for a less than $1 million condo. So you're talking about almost a quarter of the price of the actual condo is being charged to you as a special assessment. So when I say really large special assessments, that's what I mean. Of course, that was the most dramatic one. But that can significantly ruin a deal and any future deal for that property.
Yeah, but that would go on to the old owner, and then the new buyer would take the benefit of that, typically, usually. I guess my question is, as an agent, in order for a buyer to be able to get, in order for a buyer to be able to get a mortgage, a regular Freddie or Fannie mortgage, there needs to be 10% in reserves. However, we're still finding a lot of these budgets do not have 10% reserves. So the original deadline was 2025 of January. We're now coming up on January 2026, and they were supposed to hit that deadline. So this just seems like we're just keep pushing it out. And it's like, what do you tell your buyers, if that makes sense to you?
Well, I mean, it's dependent. So the condo market right now is very tough. So it's dependent on whether they've been on top of it or not. As you see time pass, there are a large majority of these condos coming into compliance and doing what they need to do. A lot of them have performed the inspections they need to do, their studies that they need to do, and they're finalizing whatever they need to do to successfully be in compliance. So the number of out of compliance condos is slowly minimizing, but we're still running into these entities as associations that aren't operating at full capacity and are not doing everything that they should be doing. And I think the the threat of the punishment that comes with not being in compliance is helping accelerate this. But some were so bad that they weren't able to get this all done within the initial deadline and this deadline as well. It takes a long time to figure out what is needed on each building, what is needed to have the money in reserves that you need for each thing. A lot of the work, elevator shafts are 50 years old. They're older than you and I combined. Some of these buildings. So, when you have things like that that have been in disrepair or not have been maintained like they should be, then you have significant research that needs to be done to find out what needs to be in reserves, or to keep the building safe in order to come into compliance with these new laws.
Well, I'm a little concerned that they're getting more time potentially, and I'm not seeing that we're having 10% reserves in the budgets at this point in time. So that's that. So you said other things that can mess up your deals, right? You said government shutdown.
Yeah. So this
How does
this
that affect?
government shutdown, yeah, it's been something that's been around for a couple months now, and it looks to be revving back up next year. So if there's things, where you need a payoff from a government-backed, lender, you need an IRS lien to be paid off and to get the payoff for that. Anything that can be government related, even these municipalities, um, things are moving slow. So, you can get a seller that is not able to satisfy what they need to do because they're not able to get something from the government or the buyer, in terms of these government backed loans. You have different aspects of a transaction that can be significantly impacted by this shutdown and the delays that are caused by the shutdown. And because of that, you might have the other party not willing to wait for that to be resolved, and then boom, you have a blown up transaction. So, it can significantly mess up transactions. I've seen it happen over the last couple months and last couple weeks, and I can anticipate more transactions being messed up as they rev the shutdown up again next year.
So you think we'll have another shutdown next year?
They're saying it. You never know. I'm not the government, so I hope not. But you never know, and I hope not because for the sake of our transactions. I hope that everything can run smoothly and as smoothly as possible.
So what's a good way for people to get a hold of you if they want to avoid some of these pitfalls?
Definitely, you can call the office, 954-779-5000, or you can email myself individually, which is Nick, Nick, at jkclosings.com, or you can email our legal team, legal at jkclosings.com. Either of those, I get both of those. I am actively in my emails, and I'm always available by phone.
And just, I know that you mentioned two other things. I'm going to say them real quick because we're running out of time. Number one is if you need a top agent, give me a call, Laura Sanders, Remax Direct, 954-650-0827. You can check me out on laurasells.com. Also, you said that master insurance lacking, and that is a big thing lately with condos, is that they should have 5% deductibles. They have 10% deductibles, and this is creating us to not be able to do Freddie and Fannie loans, which is a problem. And another thing is tell us real quick when you say bad inspectors, because I
Well,
think
I
that
can add to
when
that too.
yeah.
Go ahead.
So real quick, because we have no more time left, but real quick, bad inspectors. The big problem with that is that buyers can only sue the inspectors for the cost of the inspection, and
Yeah,
that's a problem.
and it could cause a lot of problems. Bad inspectors and bad closing agents, so bad vendors that are involved in the transaction. If you have either one of those, any of these bad vendors can ruin a transaction. So it's very important to trust, the different companies that you can use, and maybe interview them before you use them. Talk to them, get to know them a little bit, do something along those lines, and it might help you feel more comfortable. But any of these bad vendors can really mess up your transaction.
Well, I want to thank everybody for listening to Nick and I on Making Money with Laura Sanders. And until next week, again, thank you for always listening and have a great night.
Thank you for tuning in for Making Money with Laura Sanders, a name you can trust. To join the conversation, call us at the studio, 888-994-4995 Studio A, or contact Laura directly at 954-650-0827. Laura Sanders, a name you can trust. We look forward to seeing you next week.